Welcome back to Empower Success in Africa podcast, where we uncover the powerful and often forgotten stories of Africa's past to inspire our future. Today, we dive into one of the greatest and most misunderstood civilizations of Africa, the Kingdom of Kush. A land of black pharaohs, towering pyramids, and a people who defied empires, reshaped history, and left a legacy that still speaks to us today. If you think African power and success started with colonial resistance, think again. The Kushites ruled lands that stretched from the heart of Africa to the Mediterranean. They were warriors, builders, spiritual leaders, and kings who stood shoulder to shoulder with the might of ancient Egypt. But why does this matter today? Because to reclaim Africa's success, we must first reclaim our history. Let's begin this journey by stepping back in time to the land of Kush. Close your eyes and picture the mighty Nile River, winding its way through golden deserts and lush lands. To the south of Egypt in what is now modern-day Sudan, the Kingdom of Kush rose more than 3,000 years ago. Strategically located at the crossroads of Africa, it became a powerful civilization, rich in gold, trade, and culture. The Kushites controlled trade routes that connected Africa to the Middle East, moving goods like ivory, ebony, and incense. They didn't just trade wealth, they traded knowledge, ideas, and spirituality. For centuries, the Kushites lived in the shadow of Egypt, sometimes as allies, sometimes as rivals. But one day, history took a surprising turn. Kush conquered its mighty northern neighbor. Yes, you heard that right. The Kingdom of Kush didn't just survive Egypt's influence. It ruled Egypt itself. Imagine a time when Africa's greatest empire was ruled by black pharaohs from the south. This was the era of the 25th dynasty, known as the time of the Kushite pharaohs. Leaders like Pianki and Taharka took the throne of Egypt, not as conquerors but as liberators. Egypt had fallen into chaos, and it was the Kushites who restored order, reviving the old traditions, temples, and spiritual practices of the land. Taharka, one of the greatest of these Kushite rulers, was a visionary king. His name is mentioned in the Bible as the powerful king of Ethiopia, who stood against the Assyrians. Under his rule, Kushite power stretched from Sudan to the shores of the Mediterranean. He built temples, expanded cities, and strengthened African identity through faith and leadership. But most importantly, he proved that Africa was not a land to be conquered. It was a land of rulers. If I told you there are more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt, would you believe me? Well, it's true. At Meroe, the Kushites built over 200 pyramids, more than double the number in Egypt. But these pyramids weren't just monuments. They were symbols of power, spirituality, and African excellence. The Kushites believed in an afterlife, a connection between the rulers and the divine, much like their Egyptian cousins, but with a uniquely African perspective. Their architectural achievements extended beyond pyramids. They built great cities, irrigation systems, and trade hubs, showing the world that African civilizations were not just powerful, they were advanced, innovative, and deeply spiritual. As history often shows, even the greatest empires rise and fall. Over time, as trade routes shifted and new powers emerged, the Kingdom of Kush weakened. By the 4th century AD, its capital Meroe was abandoned, and the once great empire faded into history. But its spirit? That never died. The legacy of Kush lived on in the cultures, traditions, and spiritual beliefs of African civilizations that followed. Today, when we look at African resilience, pride, and identity, we are seeing the echoes of Kush. This civilization teaches us that Africa was never a continent waiting to be discovered. It was a land of empires, rulers, and thinkers. The Kushites remind us that Africans are not just survivors, we are leaders, builders, and visionaries. If we truly want success in Africa today, we must reclaim this mindset of greatness. Why does this ancient kingdom matter today? Because identity is power. When we know our past, we know our worth. Too often, Africa's story is told through the lens of slavery and colonialism. But the truth is, before any foreign power set foot on our land, Africa was already strong, already thriving. The Kingdom of Kush stands as proof that Africans were never passive players in history. We were at the center of it. So what can we learn from Kush? We learn that success comes from knowing who we are. We learn that Africans have ruled before and can rule again. We learn that our spirituality, our traditions, and our unity are not weaknesses, they are strengths. This is not just history. This is a blueprint for Africa's future. In the upcoming episodes, we'll continue to explore the great African civilizations that shaped our world. We'll dive into the Mali Empire, where Mansa Musa built a legacy of wealth and knowledge. We'll explore the Kingdom of Benin, famous for its breathtaking art and governance. And we'll walk the ancient streets of Great Zimbabwe, where stone cities stood as symbols of African power. As we wrap up today's episode, I leave you with this thought. If we want to build a powerful Africa, we must first reclaim our story. The Kingdom of Kush was more than an empire. It was a statement that Africa leads, Africa builds, Africa thrives.